Hi there, and welcome to the Daily Gardener, and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling, and it is March 16th, and it's my mom's birthday, so just a quick shout out. Happy 75th birthday, Mom. I cannot wait to give you a big hug in person. You know, Mom and I are going to have our second Moderna shots here by the end of the month, and so I can't wait, like many of you, to be together with my family again. And so here we go. We're in the home stretch, so we just have to wait a little bit longer. And speaking of waiting, today there are just 4 days left until the first day of spring. And just a reminder that I'm coming up with a fun March Madness bracket for listeners of the Daily Gardener. So if you're in the Facebook group, you've had a little teaser to this because I've been asking for your favorite flowers, and we're going to be pitting them against one another in our official The Daily Gardener March Madness Bracket 2021 edition. And I can't wait. So I will have all the details for that here within the next couple of days. So stay tuned. I'll be telling you all about it in the next couple of episodes. All right, here's what's going on in today's show. Today, we celebrate a woman who made botanical art through her pioneering photography. And we'll also learn about a man who discovered something new and then gave it a name that we are all too familiar with today. He called it the virus. And we'll hear an excerpt from a book about one of the world's top flower designers and gardeners, and what it was like for her to have a flower shop during the height of World War II. And we grow that garden library today with a fantastic book about garden design, and it doesn't get much better than this incredible book. And then we'll wrap things up with a little story about a flower known as the trailing arbutus, or the Mayflower. And I promise it's a sweet way to end the show today. All right, with that, let's head on over to today's curated news. Today's curated news comes from Elle magazine. It was written by Natasha Goodfellow, and the title is Rewilding: What It Is and Why It's Good for Your Garden. And I love how Natasha starts out this article because she mentions the book that really started this whole concept of rewilding your garden. Here's what she wrote. Since Isabella Tree's lyrical 2018 book, Wilding, the subject of rewilding has become mainstream. Now, Natasha does a wonderful job in her article, not only explaining what rewilding is, but then going into detail about the steps that you can take to rewild your own garden and why you should consider doing so. Now, one of the things that I particularly loved about this piece is that they were talking about creating a pocket forest or a mini forest, something I'm very passionate about and something I'm encouraging gardeners to consider for their 2021 gardens. And in this article, Natasha quotes an expert who says that a little pocket forest allows anyone to turn a corner of their garden into a flourishing woodland alive with birds and insect life. And of course, rewilding is also very good for pollinators. Now, I could go on and on about this great topic, but I won't because we have a jam-packed show today. So I will let you read the rest of it for yourself. But trust me when I say you'll want to follow up and check out Natasha's post in the Facebook group for the show. And all you'll have to do is search for the word wild, and her article will pop right up. And you can read all about it for yourself. Now, if you're not in the Facebook group, don't sweat it. It is so easy to join. All you need to do is the next time you're on Facebook, just search for Daily Gardener Community, where you'd search for a friend and then request to join. I'd love to meet you in the group. It's time for today's botanical history. Here's today's botanical history for March 16th. Today is the birthday of the English botanist and photographer Anna Children Atkins, who was born on this day, March 16th, in 1799. Anna is often regarded as the very first person to have published a book that was illustrated with photographs. Now, Anna's photographs were very special. She used a cyanotype process, which produced images onto cyan blue paper. And in case you're wondering, that is where we get the term blueprints. Now, today there are just a handful of copies of Anna's 1843 work, Photographs of British Algae. And although none of her specimens have survived, we at least have her beautiful prints. And back in 2015, on the occasion of her 216th birthday, Anna was honored with a Google Doodle. And if you have kids, I just want to recommend a wonderful book of photography that was written by Fiona Robinson. It's called The Bluest of Blues, Anna Atkins, and the First Book of Photographs. And then a fun activity that you can do to accompany this is making sun prints with botanical specimens. And the entire project is very easy. It just requires a few simple steps. First, you want to go out and gather items that you want to use for your artwork. This can be fern leaves or little flowers that you pick, or even leaves from a tree. And then you're going to need a tray. And on the tray, you'll place your sun print paper that you can get from Amazon, and then place your botanical items on top of the sun paper. Now, if you have plexiglass, you can place that over the top, or if you don't and it's not a windy day, that's just fine. You just need to bring your tray out into a sunny spot and let it sit for about 2 minutes. And that's going to expose the paper to the sunlight. And then you'll notice that the paper will begin to turn a pale blue. Everywhere that's not covered by one of your botanical specimens will turn a light blue, and then the areas that are covered by the specimen will remain a dark blue. And after about 2 minutes, it's time to remove all of your items off of the paper. And then you just remove the paper and then gently slip it into a tray of water. And the water is what is going to stop that exposure process. Now, you don't need to leave the paper in the water very long, only for about a minute. And then you can just take the paper out of the water after about a minute and then set it on a table or other flat surface to dry. This is a wonderful activity to do with kids in the summertime on a hot summer day when they're looking for something to do. And then when it's all done, you will have this beautiful sun print that you can put on display. And I love these, and they make beautiful gifts. Now, if you're looking for that paper on Amazon, you can search for the words nature print paper or sun print paper, and you should be able to find it pretty easily. And it is blue, so that's a clue that you're using the right kind of paper. Anyhow, it is a fun activity to do with little gardeners this summer in your 2021 garden. And today is the birthday of the Dutch microbiologist and botanist Martinus Wilhelm Beijerinck, who was born on this day, March 16th in 1851. Now, Martinus was a very smart man, a very brilliant botanist, and he was searching for the reason that tobacco plants were dying. And to do his research, Martin ground up some diseased tobacco leaves, and then he pressed the juices through a bacteria filter. And you can imagine his surprise when the filtered bacteria free liquid still spread the disease. And it was only after reviewing his experiment that Martinus concluded that a contagious living fluid was the culprit. And he had correctly deduced that a microorganism smaller than a bacteria was causing the problem. And he called this very little thing a virus, which is the Latin word for poison. Now, before 2019, two of the most common viruses in humans were the flu and the common cold. But today, of course, there's only one virus on all of our minds, and that is the coronavirus, COVID-19. But plants suffer from viruses as well. And here's the top 10 list of plant viruses. Number 10 is a potato virus. Number 9 is the brome mosaic virus. Number 8 is the plum pox virus. Number 7 is the African cassava mosaic virus. In the 6th spot is a cauliflower mosaic virus. Number 5 is another potato virus. Number 4 is a cucumber mosaic virus. In the number 3 and number 2 spots are 2 tomato viruses, the tomato yellow leaf curl virus and the tomato spotted wilt virus. And in the number 1 spot is still the tomato mosaic virus. And by the way, this list of viruses was voted on by plant virologists associated with molecular plant pathology. And if you would like to read more about all of these viruses, I've included a link to this article in the Facebook group for the show. It's time for Unearthed Words. Today's unearthed words come to us from Sue Shepherd. Sue wrote one of my favorite books. It's called The Surprising Life of Constance Spry. And this is an excerpt from the chapter called The Spry's Wartime Household. When the London Blitz began in September of 1940, she continued to struggle up to London on erratic trains to the shop, where a skeleton staff kept the show going. She feared people would think her crazy to keep a flower shop open during a war. Was it frivolously unpatriotic? The city was heavily hit by bombs, and she arrived one morning to find a near miss had shattered the glass, and the shop floor was underwater from the firemen's hoses. Connie wrote, "The whole place was in a dim half-light because of the broken and boarded-up windows. A customer came in early for flowers, and because of the friendliness, which was one of the features of those times, everyone gathered around to talk. As she left, we thanked her and apologized for so much confusion. She gave an indifferent glance at the mess around her and a smiling one at the flowers she carried, and she remarked that, in her view, flowers made one feel normal." It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, Garden Design Masterclass by Carl Delatour. This book came out in 2020, and the subtitle is 100 Lessons from the World's Finest Designers on the Art of the Garden. This book is absolutely fantastic. In fact, last night I shared a video that I found on YouTube where Carl is introducing the topics that he describes in his fabulous book. And this book is the perfect follow-up to Carl's other book Interior Design Masterclass. And in this book, Carl continues to do what he does so very well, and that is to curate 100 landscape architects and garden designers and then have them share their own answers to top gardening questions. And every single response is illustrated with photographs from each designer's work, which is what makes this book so very special. And I love compilation books like this because it's so very rare to have someone like Carl that has that breadth of knowledge of garden design. And so this book is truly a classic in the making. This book is 288 pages of thoughtful yet masterful teachings from the experts, and they're sure to inspire all gardeners regardless of experience. You can get a copy of Garden Design Masterclass by Carl Delatour and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for around $32. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. It was on this day in 1927 that a woman named Nelva Weber wrote a letter to the editor of the Pantograph, the newspaper out of Bloomington, Illinois. Here's what she wrote. Before the winter snow has left the pine-clad New England slopes, one may find that tiny harbinger of spring, the trailing arbutus. This little flower has a rosy wax blossom and a long trailing stem and withered leaves. Whittier was a lover of this little flower, and it was he who wrote, "Creeps the trailing arbutus over hillock and hollow, through leafage whose greenness and glory are fled." And an interesting Indian legend is told about this flower. It was said that the warrior who wore a wreath of perfect arbutus leaves would never be defeated nor suffer death. Winona, the beautiful Indian maiden, found a spray of perfect leaves, and she wove them into a wreath for her father. He was successful in combat, but when his daughter eloped with a warrior from another tribe, he was overcome with grief. His tears fell upon the arbutus leaves and withered them, and after that, no perfect leaves were to be found. Now, Winona wished to find a wreath of perfect leaves for her husband, and they wandered hand in hand in search of the leaves. But instead of perfect leaves, they found the charm of love and perfect happiness. And we who travel life's pathway are in search of our own metaphorical wreath of flawless arbutus leaves. And of course, we search in vain. We do not find our perfect spray of arbutus in this life. But if we are kind and thoughtful of others along every step of our journey, we shall receive the charm of love and happiness as a reward for our search. Isn't that sweet? Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. Hey, thanks for spending part of your day with The Daily Gardener. If you want to read even more botanical brevities, just head on over to thedailygardener.org. That's where you can find all the stories, biographies, and books that I share on the show. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for my free Friday newsletter. It has lots of goodies in it, and I try to make the newsletter like you're getting a marvelous letter from a garden friend. You can always find The Daily Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media. You can follow the show on Twitter, and you have a standing invitation to join the free Facebook group for listeners of the show. Just search for Daily Gardener Community the next time you're on Facebook and request to join. Last but not least, you can easily share your gardener greetings or book submissions by emailing me at jennifer@thedailygardener.org. The Daily Gardener is produced in lovely Maple Grove and Wyoming, Minnesota, with the help of Paige Mance, Brooke Bierbaum, and Eric Begay. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling, and as always, have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you tomorrow.